Welcome to the WorkingAudioTools podcast, the home of all things mixing and sometimes mastering, and sometimes we interview audio industry professionals. This week is no different. We have a mastering engineer who's been in the industry for an undetermined amount of time. They will tell us how long they've been in the industry, but they have seen a lot of changes in the profession, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Welcome to the WorkingAudioTools, Sean J. Vincent.
Hey chaps, how you doing?
Very good, very well. Okay, now again, just to say very quickly, many of you may know Sean from his YouTube channel called Studio Life, but today I want to almost separate ourselves away from YouTube, and I want to discuss your journey as a working full-time audio engineer, because I think it's very important that, especially when we get UK guys, girls, thems and theys on the podcast, that we discuss the journey of how things have changed and adapted. So, like, Sean, give us a little bit of backstory on when you started, how you got your start, and then how you got to where you are now.
Wow. Okay, it was a long time ago, 35 years ago.
35 years ago.
35 years ago, when I was 17.
Wow.
52 now, scarily. Yeah, well, when I was about 12 or 13, I saw, do you remember a TV show called Tomorrow's World?
Yes.
Years ago, in about 1985, there was an episode all about changing music technology, and Steve Lipson was on it with Trevor Horn showing off the SSL and showing off a Synclavier, and you had Midge-Ure on there showing off the first Yamaha digital mixer, DPM-7, and I was just watching it at like 12 going, oh my God. And it was kind of the first thing that drew my attention away from skateboarding and BMXing, and I'm like, right, that's what I want to do. And then I spent the next few years slowly starting to accumulate stuff. I got a 4-track cassette recorder, I got a little drum machine, I got a synth and an electric guitar, started recording myself and my friends. I had a bunch of friends who were into similar stuff, and we were all in bands, started bands and stuff. So it's quite traditional, but a bit old school compared to what kids do now, I suppose. And then I was halfway through my A-levels I was doing geography and economics, and my best friend got a job at Church Studios as a tape op.
Oh, wow.
And I was so jealous because I used to go and see him at work, and I'm like, oh, God, this is what I should be doing. I shouldn't be at school. So I wrote like 100 letters, typewriter job. And I got 3 interviews. One was at a studio called Charlotte Street Studios in Charlotte Street. They did a lot of music to picture, a lot of sync stuff for TV. I didn't really want to do that. Another interview was at CTS, which used to be in Wembley, and they back then were the place to go and record orchestral scores for films. Interesting, but basically I'd have spent all day setting up headphone mixes for 100, piece orchestra. Didn't really want to do that. And the other interview I got was at Matrix in Little Russell Street in the West End, and at the time that was the premier studio to go to mix if you wanted to be in the top 10.
Right, okay.
And while I was at my interview, Adamski was there with Seal, and we had Nana Cherry in there. And it was just like, it was, as soon as I walked into the interview, I'm like, this is it. This is where I want to be. And it's really funny, the boss of the place, a guy called Nigel, was literally eating a McDonald's while he interviewed me. And he just said, why should you work here? Why should I give you a job? And, I did the best I could, really. And that was that. He didn't tell me whether I'd got it or not. I went back to school. And I think it was like a couple of days later, the studio phoned my school while I was in a geography lesson. Someone from the school office came to get me out of class, and I had to go all the way to the office and take this phone call. And it was him. He says, can you start tomorrow? I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
So it was wicked. I walked back into my class and see ya.
See you later, guys.
That was literally it. Yeah, and the next day I was there. But it was such a shock. I was doing 10 a.m. until 10 a.m. the following day, every day. So, and there was a guy doing the hours I wasn't. There was 2 of us, 2 tape ops, and I did 10 till 10, then he did 10 till, and so it went. Properly in at the deep end, and it was everything from emptying the bins and doing a hoovering to zeroing the desk to going to get people takeaways. I remember working with Bomb the Bass, and they'd be sending me out to West End in the middle of the night to go and get them, some chicken porridge and some noodles, and it was like, I didn't know.
Chicken porridge?
Yeah. It was a thing.
I'd expect that kind of thing in Scotland. What's that?
It wasn't very nice, I can tell you that. But that was it. Yeah, sort of in at the deep end, and it was basically a case of sit at the back of the room and watch these engineers mixing these great records, and learn as much as you could. Stay quiet, don't annoy anyone. And every now and again, you would get there was a lot of engineers that worked there. I don't think any of them rolled in 30, and two of them in particular were really nice to me and encouraged me to learn and would show me things. And there was 3 studios there, 2 SSL studios and a soundtracks studio. And basically the rule was when one of the rooms went emptied for the day, I could use the other one. I could use it. So I would go in there, put on a 2-inch tape of whatever they'd been working on and just start messing around. And that was how I learned. I just listened to old tapes and did my own mixes, which I would mix onto cassette and take home and show off to my mates.
Did you then have people on site you could play those mixes to and get feedback from?
Yes, but there was only really one guy I was brave enough to play them to. And he was the only guy, a guy called Q. And
he was the cleaner.
He was only 19 and he was already flying. He mixed KLF's number 1, What Time Is Love. And
wow.
He worked with Nada Cherry, mixed some of her album. He worked with Bomb the Bass. He ended up joining Bomb the Bass while he worked there. He was so good. But yeah, he was really helpful. He would properly teach me. So that was it. Real baptism of fire. And it was multi-track tape machines. And sometimes you would get to operate the remote. Sometimes they would ask you to patch things in. Sometimes you would set up a mic, for a singer. I think I mic'd up a drum kit for Keith LeBlanc once. That was pretty cool. We had Tackhead in there, so that was amazing. So it wasn't much recording. It was mostly mixing. But while I was there, they mixed Blue Lines, a Massive Attack album, and I watched that being mixed. And I'd patch things in. Watched Jeremy Allen use a Massenburg EQ for the first time I'd ever seen one, and it was things like that stuck in my head. It was like all these great engineers mixing these tracks and using specific bits of gear in specific ways, and it all goes in when you're young, especially. It just seeps in your brain, and then first time you get to go, you think, well, I'll do that.
So how long did it take for you to kind of get your shot?
Well, I was a very egotistical and a frustrated young man, so I didn't like being a tape op very much. I didn't like the fact that I was basically going to have to spend 2 years making the tea and watching, and I didn't really like that very much. There was a day when a band came in, I can't remember the name now, a Northern band. They were a live band who had sort of like dance music elements. There was a lot of that dance crossover stuff. Everyone was trying to do Happy Mondays again, that kind of stuff. I can't remember the name. Oh, they were called the Hollow Men. And they were doing a single, I think. And I think it was them. Probably, I can't remember for sure. Anyway, it might have been them. A band turned up, an engineer didn't, called in sick, whatever. And I basically just went, I can do it. And that was great because the session went well. Everyone was happy. My boss was happy. The other engineers weren't particularly happy.
Yeah, I could imagine.
They were just like, in fact, one of them wrote a letter to my boss saying that he wasn't going to have it, that I was going to leapfrog the process.
Right.
If he doesn't do his 2 years, I'm. So,
and was that common practice? Was that like a thing where 2 years was like the thing in all the studios?
I know guys that have done longer than that, much longer than that.
Wow.
But back then it was about average, I would say. And at that particular studio, that was how it was.
Yeah.
But after that episode, I quit because I thought I don't really want to go back to sweeping up. I've proved I can do it. I'd need to do more, not less. So I thought I'll find another studio. So I did. I then transferred to a studio nearer home. I was commuting from Hertfordshire, which was a nightmare. I was earning £60 a week working there full time. £60 a week. And my train fare was £47 a week.
Fuck's sake.
And in those days I smoked. So that was the rest of it.
Fuck. Finished.
So it wasn't great. But I got a job at a studio closer to me, and they were just in the process of being built. And I first went to meet the owner. He said, "Oh yeah, a few months we'll be opening. Could do with an engineer." So I said, "Look, I'll hang around and help you finish off the build, and then if that's cool, I'll work here with you," kind of thing. Took another year. Oh, so I actually spent a year helping him build a studio. But that was fascinating. He had it was all designed by Andy Munro, so like really nice acoustics. Spent a lot of money on it. And going through that process has really turned out to be something that was great for me. And I did end up working there for 5 years. So, so 5 years there doing everything from unknown bands coming in to do whatever they wanted to record, some names coming in now and again. We kind of, after we opened, within a couple of years, we realised there was a real sort of market opening up for what in those days was called vintage gear. Now everyone relies on it, but this was early 90s, so everyone had ditched anything vaguely decent, you know.
Oh, interesting. Right, okay.
And we found a few ways to get hold of lots of old valve gear. We got hold of some real pie compressors. We got hold of some 1073s from a skip. Literally, literally from a skip. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, you would not believe the gear we picked up from skips from places that were just slinging it, because in those days everyone wanted crisp and clean, and it was that stuff wasn't what people wanted. Anyway, we sort of sussed this out. We even got a Studer 2-track mastering machine. We got all kinds of cool stuff. And then people found out we had this gear and they started coming to use our stuff. And in fact, when we ended up closing, about 6 years later, Edwin Collins bought a lot of our gear. And a lot of the stuff he used to record that album on, which sounded amazing, was our gear. So that was that. And then I guess that was about 95, 96, about the time that studio sort of came to a natural end. Well, it wasn't a natural end, it got flooded.
Right.
It was a basement and the insurance wouldn't pay out. So the owner decided that was that. The following year, I spent a lot of time on a business plan and saving money and borrowing money, and I set up my first studio when I was 23 years old.
23, wow.
23. I rented 1,500 square feet of premises and built a studio. I had 3 live rooms, control room, lounge.
Jesus, at that time as well. Fucking hell.
Yeah. You'll be pleased to hear 12 months later I'd gone bust.
I was going to say that.
I'd forgotten that to run a studio, you not only have to be quite a good sound engineer, you need to be a good businessman. And I didn't have a clue. And it just all went wrong. And I was the wrong age. You know, at that age, I was starting to want to catch up on. I'd missed a lot of being young because I'd been working a lot. So I wanted to start going out with my mates and stuff. And I'd do a session, go straight to the club and spend all the money. And, you know, that didn't last long. So, and also I found out the following year that my girlfriend was expecting. So, yeah, I had a son in 1998. He just got married a couple of weeks ago, insane.
Yeah, you were saying, yeah.
Mad. But that made me panic. So I got out of the industry for a year. I thought, right, I need a proper job. I need stability and all the rest of it. Turns out that doesn't work for me. So I got back in and kind of, I was freelancing a bit. And then I got asked to go and work for a live sound company. They asked if I'd be interested in mixing gigs. And I'm like, yeah, not really done much of that. But yeah, give it a go. Ended up being something I did right up until 2019. I did
wow, that long. Right,
yeah, for you, it became my thing for a long time. I toured all over the world. I toured US 25 times, I think. I toured Japan, South America, Europe. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Did all the biggest venues in the world I'd ever wanted to work at. And I was kind of doing that and had a studio in the background. I'd be doing a bit of both. So I'd be freelancing in my studio and then I'd be freelancing as a live engineer. That went on until about 2016, started a management company, started managing artists, which I still do. And I've had various studios over the years that kept me going on the studio front. But this one, the mastering business, I started in 2022 and I built this studio in 2023. And that pretty much brings us up to date.
Wow, now that is a journey, to say the least.
There's been all kinds of weird stuff in the middle, but yeah, pretty much that's it. That's the short version.
So I think what's great for me and Ed is that obviously you've seen, the industry change, over 35 years.
Massively.
So see if we were to kind of like leapfrog to today, like what would you say are like some of the biggest changes into how people are trying to get into the industry? Would you say it's way, way, way harder to make it work full time now than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago?
It entirely depends by what you mean in the industry.
Okay, that's good, yeah.
It is way easier to buy some stuff, kit out your spare room, start working. That set up social media, start getting clients. That's a route that didn't used to exist. So the fact that you can do it yourself, do you consider yourself in the industry at that point? I think you probably should now. Whereas when I started, it was a very strict sort of gate-kept thing.
Yes.
You must work at a professional studio. You can do what you want after that, but you must start there. And I think that's gone now. I don't think
I still feel like there's a bit of a stigma for that.
I think it's because there's still people left over like me from that era. But in reality, I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of people that just have never done that, and they're great. Doesn't make any difference.
I still feel from certain people I know. So Paul and I have this phrase, in the industry, and we're trying to, get in the industry. When I agree with you, Sean, we are in the industry if we're getting clients that are putting music out that is contributing to the industry. But when I think what Paul and I feel there's a difference is people who are really established, people working for labels. I feel like people mixing and mastering for labels are in the industry.
That's
Paul,
the way
would you
I've
agree?
always seen it. Yeah, I've always seen it that way, yeah.
Yeah, whereas the independent thing is great, but it's not quite on that echelon. It's not on that level. So I still feel when I speak to people who are working in the industry studios or mixing and mastering on that level for labels, I still feel like there's a little bit of a stigma. Maybe it's an ego separation. Maybe it's I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's some difference imposed. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I get that. I mean, I think a good way to look at it to combat that is that if you are one of these people that works in a big studio, like every now and again I go and do some work at Rack. Rack is like my favourite London studio. I've done a lot of stuff there over the years. I know them people really well. If you're one of the house people there, I mean, they have the best house engineers. The people there go there and they work there for life quite often because it's such a nice place to work. They really look after their staff. They pay them well. Great place to work. But if you work somewhere like that, the clientele coming through the door, they're all people you've heard of, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy to build up a CV when you're working somewhere like that. Yeah. And it's very easy if you're not working with those kind of people to feel like you're not in it. But really, it's no more or less valid. It's not. And I would say 50% of my clients who probably come to me in the first place through social media are with a label. Might not be a very big label always, but quite often there's a label involved. So, I have got label who will phone me as well and want me to do stuff. It might be slightly different. They might be slightly bigger, but it's kind of the same thing. And, the days of record labels running the industry, I mean, obviously they would love it to go on forever. I don't think it will. I don't think it will go on forever.
It's like the decline's starting, doesn't it?
They're marketing companies now.
Yeah, I agree.
They haven't got much else going for them. I'm sorry for all the people out there I work with. It's kind of true.
No, I agree. What surprises me is why don't Spotify have their own record label?
Oh, could you imagine that though? Fuck me.
I'm not sure I want them to. But,
it'd be an industry monopoly almost overnight. But
yeah. I mean, I say to a lot of up and coming artists now, like, why do you want a deal? Why do you want a record label?
Very true.
Totally. They have got a lot of marketing clout. They can get you out there very quickly. But to me, it's so transparent. There's a bunch of songs doing the rounds on TikTok at the moment. And I've got people going, "Oh, look at this! It's all blowing up naturally." I'm like, "No, it's not. No, it's not. This is paid for by a label. Look at the sheer amount of content. It might look like it's homemade, but they're doing that on purpose, so it looks homegrown. But it's that's what labels do. They throw a huge amount of marketing at projects and get them out there, which that's difficult to do.
And talking about labels, right? How have you seen it change in regards to A&Rs? Because I've got this thing that I see with me not being, in the industry. You see all these memes about what a modern A&R is, and it's kind of almost, I don't know the word to say it, but again, it's almost like they're kind of like young hipster kind of thing, where they don't really have any, quality, in terms of their ear. It's just kind of like, yeah, sounds good, let's get Taika away, blah blah blah. How have you seen the suits? I've used that term, change over the time. Like, what was like the scenario? Like, how much influence did an A&R have, say, in the like 80s, 90s, compared to like what they have now? Because it seems to be the A&Rs have quite a lot of say when I speak to a lot of industry engineers.
Yeah, I lucky in that I don't really work with people like that anymore. I don't. Yeah. I'm lucky. A lot of the A&R guys, all of them that I work for are very experienced, been in the industry a long time. They've got very in-check egos. Mm-hmm. They understand music very well, and they're just trying to help get the project over the line. They're not causing problems. I totally get what you're saying. I've worked with younger, poppier acts in my past, and yeah, you can get some very egotistical A&Rs who are probably thinking they're a bigger part of the picture than what they are.
Yeah.
I've had people come and sit in the control room and, to try and give you the steer on the mix. I need it like this, I need it like that. And, and in the old days, we would all sort of look at each other and go, right, for the next hour, no matter what we do, we're going back to this point here.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
For an hour.
Yeah.
Because we need to make this guy feel like he's achieved something, I don't know. I know that there's definitely some A&R people who are prevalent on TikTok and stuff, and I think some of the stuff they say is bullshit.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
But I see a lot of comments saying, "Oh, you don't even listen to demos anymore," and it's like some probably don't, but I'm sure a lot do. But it's very difficult anymore in that. Yeah, I missed it out of the story, but at some point in 2006, I started a record label, which in a smaller form I still run, but for a few years, me and a couple of friends took it very seriously, and it was it's so hard until you start doing that to try and explain to people that however good someone's music might be, that's very different to knowing that you can do something with it, to market it, to sell it, to whatever it is, and that was a weird experience for me going through that, to work it out that just because you love something, that's not enough. It's got to be something that you can somehow fit into a section of the market. If you want to turn it into money, it's very, very hard to do. But I think it has changed. I think it's definitely, if you want to be an artist, you have to do the whole thing now. You have to be prepared to write the music, make the music, get it out there, promote it, do the social media thing, get yourself to a level. And, at that point, you've got a tough decision to make. Do you let someone then take the glory and all the money, or do you keep going? And it's a tricky one. I totally understand why people accept the record deal, because they feel like it's the end of a journey, but it never is. It's the beginning, and sometimes it's the end. I've worked with bands who have been signed because they're a bit too good and a bit too similar to something the label already has. So it's like, right, we'll get you under contract and we'll bury you. So that stuff's always gone on, and it always will.
That's common. I know people who that's happened to.
Yeah.
Oh, you compete with Snow Patrol. Right, we're signing 10 bands that sound like Snow Patrol, so nobody else can sign them up.
Happens. That does happen.
But I suppose at the end of the day, we are getting into maybe the parts of the industry that, again, me and Ed are, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. But if we think about, engineering-wise, so... Yeah. Obviously, the rise of YouTube and, the accessibility of content and information has, stuck us into a place where, you could genuinely learn almost everything now. But what do you feel has changed now, Sean, when the people that you see coming up now? Do you take my opinion, and again, this is just a snapshot of what I've seen, dealing with so many people and like comments and averaging them all out, that it seems to be like, when I speak to people maybe like yourselves, the work that you had to put in to learn, for example, again, they would say you need to be a tape op for 2 years to get your shot. The amount of learning that you had to do, the amount of questions that you had to ask, the amount of time it took you to get to that point when you're like, he's doing that because of that. Okay, he's doing that, and building up, a portfolio in your head of things that, make an engineer an engineer. Would you say that the modern way that people are learning engineering is, I don't know, is it too easy? Is there too much stuff out now? Because when I speak to a lot of people that talk about, when Serban and that were getting up, a lot of things were gatekept. Like, and I remember somebody told me when the whole clipping thing first came out, there was many, many, many pissed off people in the industry that were like, no, the clipping thing was our thing. That was our thing that like made us louder than everybody else. And I think over time, there has been content creators that, have got a lot of views for, like sharing a lot of the industry secrets. And is that something you noticed, that things were more gatekept back in the day, where it seems to be now we've almost got too much information where people are like, fuck, I can't make heads or tails. What is the right thing to do?
I think it was just very, very different. Learning by sitting and watching people work meant that you learnt practically. You know, there was no video to go back and watch later. There was no internet to look it up. Oh, when was that first used? You know, who, you know, so you had to go by what someone showed you and told you. You know, I remember very specifically when they were mixing the Blue Lines Massive Attack album, they told me to go out to the office and go and hire a Valley People de-esser. And I'm like, what the fuck is a de-esser? And what's Valley People? I didn't know what it was. So I phoned up, you know, the hire company, whoever it was we used. And they said, yeah, it's on its way. And like half an hour later, it turns up. And I'm like, what is this? And then they explained what it was and why they needed it. And we plugged it in and got it working. Boom, done. And I'm like, right, I know what a de-esser is and what it does. That was it. I might not use one again for another 6 months or a year or whatever, but that was how I learned. You know, when I saw someone setting up a 76 on a vocal for the first time, why have you said it like that? Well, listen to it if I don't. Listen to it if I said it like this. Oh, right, yeah, okay, that works. Brilliant, move on. So very different, just practical, you know. Like the first time I got showed how to mic up a drum kit, I got showed one guy's opinion of how a drum kit should be mic'd. And no one showed me again for years until I was working with a very, you know, old school engineer, and he saw what I was doing and went, why are you doing it like that? I said, well, so you do it. No one's ever told me otherwise. I've done hundreds of drum kits like this. He went, oh, well, try this. And it was like, oh, right, okay. And you learn over time that there's loads of ways, and you have to find which way suit what kit, what drummer, what song. They're all different. Yep. They're all different. And I think what happens now is that if you start from scratch now and you get a copy of Pro Tools or Logic or whatever, you've got every conceivable audio effect and process in it. Yep. No context about what it's for, why you should use it, should you use it at all, is just pushing a fader up enough, is a volume change better than an EQ, you know, all that stuff that we had to learn because of necessity. Like, you know, I don't know what people imagine, but when I tell people, like, in our main mix room, I think we had two 1176s, one LA2A, and a few other compressors, but not many. Everything else was just SSL dynamics. There was not loads of processing. There was, I think we had one Lexicon 480. The rest of our reverbs were MIDI verbs.
Was there? Right, okay.
Yeah, this was Pro Studio doing mixes for chart stuff that stood the test of time. So the gear, although it was, what we did have was pretty gorgeous, there wasn't loads of it. And so you got to really learn, right, I've only got this many, what am I going to use my gear on? So you got to really learn where it was best suited. Whereas now I think it's really difficult. And then, of course, you've got YouTube. You do a search, how do I do this? And there will be God knows how many views. They're all getting in the way of each other. I mean, I get God knows how many comments on the channel telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, you don't know what you're talking about, mate. You know, you don't understand it. Like,
we all get that.
Whatever. It's okay, but you know, it's very easy to get into arguments, but it's so frustrating. I don't know where I would start if I was starting now. I think it's incredibly hard. The advantage is you can have all the tools in the world for not much money anymore. The difficulty is that you've got to learn what they do, or you might as well not have them.
Paul, where would you start now if you were starting again?
I would still go to college, but again, like what Sean was talking about, practical. The college that I went to for 2 years was basically all practical. So again, I learned from, you know, like the main lecturer. He was one of Thin Lizzy and Nirvana's live sound engineers. So I had another engineer who engineered the first Katie Turnstill's album. He was involved in that. I had another one that was involved in house music. So again, there was a lot of practical things, and, you know, it was all about sessions. Right, you need to get bands in. That was a part of, you know, your course. You had to get a band in. You had to see what a session was like, and having them on your shoulder, mixing in treated spaces, you know, like, and okay, it was KRKs back in that time, because it was like, fucking hell, man, I was there like 15 years ago. Yeah, it was probably about 15 years ago now. So again, times have changed even then, because when I think about the college, because there's talk about me going back to do a few things, I look at them now and, you know, they have, you know, adapted over the years, because again, things are more available and they are less expensive. Because at the time, you know, the Neumann U87, there was one, and, you know, it was honestly treated like the Holy Grail. It's like genuinely, it was in a cupboard, and you had to you're pure shaking when you got it, and the lecturers were always like, right, who's got it, right, because nothing could go missing.
Yeah, what Paul means was there was one in Scotland.
But it was those things where again,
even that was EU funded.
Actually,
sorry, moving on.
Fuck you. Got it there. But actually, that whole college is Avid funded. So again, that's where I learned Pro Tools and I learned how to do video and stuff like that. I think what I've learned the most has been, if I think about where I am now, and again, hark back to what Sean was talking about, was that there are so many different ways to do things, and there's so much information that it's very easy to get confused, and very easy to get in a point where you're like, who do I trust? And if I could go back, I would have done what Sean done, and I would have found the studio, and I would have just, in my earlier years, I was a little bit like Sean, but I had an ego, and I was like, no, I could do this on my own, I'm going to create my own freelance business. And you learn very quickly that it's not going to work. So yeah, I think where I'm now in my mid-30s, I've got the studio, and it's only now the business is starting to take shape. But I think for me, having solid mentors is the thing that me and you, Ed, have talked about a lot. And I think having experienced people that have, been or are where you want to be is the key to learning, because those are the people that are going to teach you, the wheat from the chaff. They're going to say, right, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. This is what I'm actually doing on a mix. Like, for example, Emre Celik, who I do, mix phones with. There's times that I've seen Emre do mixes and he's like, bro, watch this. I'm just going to do mostly fader, pan moves. He hardly ever uses compression. And I'll be like, right, this, that. It's like, bro, 15 plugins, V1 accepted. Then I'll get millions and millions of streams in Turkey. I think if I could have my time back, I would not pollute myself with all of the videos, because that's what I did. I was in a position where so many people are now, where they're getting told this from him, this from them, this from her, this from them, this from them, this from them, this from them. Then they come to me and they're like, Paul, what do I do? He's saying this and he's saying that and he's saying this and he's saying that. And it was only until we did this podcast that me and Ed learned, the value of going out and just learning from mistakes. I almost feel like people, I'll ask you this, Sean, as well. Do you feel that people are more scared to make mistakes now? Where I suppose, back in the day, you kind of, you got to watch people, you know what I mean? And you always had a mentor on your shoulder that could be like you said, no, you went into somebody else's studio and he was like, yeah, maybe you wouldn't do it that way. And it's kind of, if you're not willing to put yourself in places that you're going to make mistakes and maybe look a bit foolish, then you're not going to learn, you know what I mean?
No, I think you've just got to put yourself out there. I think quite often, when I didn't really know as much as what I thought I did, I would be putting myself forward for working with people that I thought, I'm going to love this and I'm going to do a great job. You listen to it 10 years later and go, it's all right. But it helped. No one pulled me up on anything. It wasn't like anyone ever said, no, that's not up to scratch or whatever, but it just helps. You got to push. And I think I've done that throughout my career. Going back to the university thing or college thing we were talking about, briefly for a couple of years, just at the back end of COVID, I one day a week went to teach at a university.
Oh, right, okay.
And I was teaching kids, young adults, whatever, studio stuff. And it really freaked me out that they had access to some of the best studios I've ever seen, like incredible facilities. And the second they were able to get out of there, they got out of there. They went straight to the pub, they went to McDonald's, whatever. And one guy came and spoke to me after one of the lectures and said, I'm really serious about this. I want this to be my career. Have you got any advice? What can I do? I'm like, when we finish this lecture, go straight to the studio, start a session, do something, mix something, get your friends in, record something, crack on. You're here for 3 years, rinse this place, get as much as you can out of it, because you'll never have this again without paying for it. And yeah. And he didn't. And no one did. And all those studios, and there were dozens of them, I'm not kidding, were all empty most of the time.
Wow. Jeez, peeps. That's crazy to me.
I couldn't really get my head around it. I'm like,
Near can I.
What do you need? What do you need to make you want to do this? I don't get it.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. Don't forget, you can't just upload your songs to Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, or Tidal. You have to go through a music distribution service. There are many out there, but DistroKid is the one that Paul and myself use. They don't take any of your royalties. You keep 100% of the streaming revenue that you earn. For just $1.92 a month or $22.99 a year, you can upload unlimited songs. Your lyrics can be found in Google and other places. You get the blue Spotify verified checkmark, and you can create royalty splits between yourselves and fellow contributors. You also get access to the new DistroKid iPhone app for editing and uploading songs and accessing your statistics on the move. There are plenty of other tools available on DistroKid. We'll go through those in another section.
And I suppose, if we, go back to the importance, of the things that we don't have access to, that many people aspire to, they go on YouTube and they see all these YouTubers and all these engineers and they're like, I wish I had this, I wish I had a 1073, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I wish I had this console, I wish I had these pair of speakers and blah, 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 blah. And I think, that's what I feel quite bad for so many people starting out now, that, for many people, they don't have the access to hear, a really well-treated room with a really, really good pair of speakers, which kind of leans me into, your studio that you've got now and maybe some of the studios that you've had in the past. Now, again, you talked about, some of the studios that you worked in, again, were really, really, really well-treated. Yeah. So what were the things that you learned that you found worked really well in some of the studios that you had? Was there certain things that you always did is there things you always do when you go in a studio, like kind of certain acoustic things that you find works best, or, what have you learned over your time?
There's things I would always want to do, but wasn't always able to. So obviously I was very lucky. I started in very pro studios, which sounded fantastic and were designed by famous acoustic designers and stuff. Yeah. The first studio I built was kind of less than ideal in every way. I'd already learnt quite a lot, so I'd built this was way before Gig Acoustics and anyone like that existed. You had to build everything yourself. So, I built loads of baffles and stuff, but ultimately it was still a fight. I was up against funny shaped rooms, funny size rooms. You did the best you could, but yeah, very aware that room acoustics are everything, and that if you fix that, everything else is way easier, easier. It's the most important thing. So when I built this place a couple of years ago, I knew from the off, I was fine because I had a completely blank page. I could do whatever I wanted. It was basically a bit of the garden, do what I want. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, right, I'm going to build what I need, and I'm going to build it the way I need it to be built. And I basically just drew it, and I drew the wall construction, how it was going to be made. And then I contacted a builder. I went, right, this is what I need to build. I'm perfectly happy for you to do it. I'll help you if you make it a bit cheaper than if I leave you alone. So I was like builder's mate for a couple of months while we built this place. But I particularly like every single surface on the walls to be rock wool. I don't like having baffles up. I like the room to be one big baffle. I find that works nice because there's so many reflective things around in the studio. There's screens and God knows what else. So the odd baffle here and there I find, although it's fine, I prefer the whole thing to be, properly constructed. I've got pretty deep bass traps in the corners. I would have preferred them in the back corners, but that wasn't possible with doors and just space generally. Yeah. Whereas the front corners, you can lose that behind the desk. That was a better way of doing it. And then I'd sloped the ceiling. None of the walls are parallel. The ceiling and the floor's not parallel. There's no standing waves. It was just a case of do everything right from the design stage, and hopefully when I put my monitors in here, everything will be fine. And pretty much it was. I had to move them a tiny amount.
And talking about the position, what kind of position have you got in terms of your Dynaudios? Like, what do you find has been the best for you? Did you follow the I always forget, was it like the rule of thirds, or did you find that the bass boundary interference, having them right up against the back wall, worked better? Like, what's your kind of setup with your Dynaudios?
They are, I don't know what they're, 10 inches or something from the back wall maybe, so they're pretty close, but the wall is quite a lot of rock wool deep, so it's kind of, it's not the same as being in front of a wall really, so I haven't got them on that setting at all. But I am sat perfectly in equilateral triangle in the mixed position. The LS10s are in a secondary position. They're not ideal, but they're fine when I sit back a bit. I'm generally I would say I'm on them 50% of the time, the NS10s, and they're I'm so used to them being in a weird place. I literally would go into studios for years and they would be here and not quite straight, and you just didn't really matter too much back then. So I don't worry about it too much.
And are you using a sub in your setup?
No, never got on with a sub. I tried out a couple of subs. Just didn't get on with it. I don't need them. This room isn't big enough really to warrant subs. Mm-hmm. They go down to, I think was it 29 or 30 or something, the lid 48s. I can hear everything I need to hear. It's, I do use headphones if I really need to check out something properly low, but 9 times out of 10 it's exactly where I thought it was going to be. So yeah, so much of that is room. So much of it is the room.
And are you using correction as well?
No.
Right. Okay.
I've tried it. I think I've spent so many years not using it. I've always been of the old school. You don't want to do that. I used to go into friends' studios in the 90s and they'd put a graphic EQ across their monitors. I'm like, what are you doing? That's just going to move the problem somewhere else. And in my head, it's the same. I know it's not the same, but in my head, it's like, do you know what? Just get it as close as you can get it and leave it alone, and it'll be fine. And I don't have any issues. So.
And I love that because, again, me and Ed talk about Spike Stent a lot, and what we get told about Spike is that Spike's like, again, he had Trinov, didn't like it, binned it, and again, he doesn't use any room correction. He just, Neumann's in the room now, and, he's learned that sound, and that's him, and he just mixes away and does it. So, I mean, again, it's all many people talk about, obviously, learn your room, learn your monitors, but I think the most important thing, as you said, Sean, is that the room has to come first. So again, the reason that you can learn that room and get good results is because you've taken the time to find the right speaker position, treat the room right, get it to a point where you've not got any surprises. And you're finding that you're doing more mastering than mixing these days?
Yes, in terms of volume, yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's more mastering jobs coming through the door. Mixing, there's still quite a lot, but it's really funny. I get so many clients come through social media now. I would say 70% of my work is coming through social media now. Yeah, it's mad.
Specifically YouTube or the others, Instagram and TikTok?
Instagram is probably first point of contact for most people. Sometimes it's YouTube, but more often than not, it's Instagram. And there's such a lot of misunderstanding. I get booked all the time for a master, and then they'll send me like 30 audio files. I'm like, right, so you've sent me a multi-track, so you want a mix then?
Yeah.
Oh, right. And then we have to have that whole conversation. That's a more expensive thing.
That's a different price, yeah.
And sometimes they want me to do it, and sometimes they don't. Quite often, that's how I'm getting the mix jobs come through, apart from, the contacts I've had for years. More mastering than mixing. But I love it. It's something I've done on and off over the years. I only really started taking it seriously sort of 3 or 4 years ago. It's such an interesting thing to do because it's so varied. And in the space of a day, I could do maybe 5 different genres. And that's, to me, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And, and it's also, I quite like listening to other people's mixes. I don't very often go back and tell people to change things. Sometimes if there's something truly woeful in there, but generally it's like, no, this is their mix. This is my job to, get it as good as it can get.
How do you feel about the future of mastering, given, plugins like the new Mastering the Mix, Faster Master, which is basically an auto AI mastering plugin? Logic's got its built-in AI now. There's
Ozone. Really, people are fucking still using Ozone to this day.
Yeah, there's all sorts. It seems like there's a lot of threats on all sides, but people are still willing to pay for that personal touch.
The thing is that I think they're very good, a lot of them. A lot of them are doing really good jobs as far as just making your track sit alongside other tracks for playing it to people. In reality, I don't think I've ever heard one of those do a job good enough that I'm going to submit that to a label. It's just not there, I don't think.
I've heard a few or tried a few and thought, oh, actually, I don't know if I can do better than that. And then you get into it and it's like, okay, I can still do better than that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's the same. Mastering is very similar to mixing. And mixing, I remember explaining to a friend of mine who was a live engineer at the time when I was doing a lot of touring, and he was more new to the career, and he's like, I just struggle so much. And I'm like, you're working with awful bands. With they have terrible kit, and You know, everything before it gets to you is shit. So you are having to mix a pile of shit. That's important. I would struggle too.
Paul and I went through the same thing when we were utilizing a lot of the Produce Like a Pro multi-tracks.
Yeah.
Some of them are great. The Mark Daniel Nelson ones, unbelievable. Some of them are recorded on very cheap equipment in a rush on badly tuned instruments with musicians who were doing it for free.
Unfixable.
Some of them were atrocious, and we thought it was, a reflection on how good we were. And what it was, there was a breeding ground, a training ground of, well, if you can start getting this stuff to sound all right, you're going to find the good stuff a lot easier.
Exactly.
And I think that's the case. And I have this thing with drums now. If I get like a beautiful track with, acoustic everything, and then program drums, or like a no offense to guitarists, but you can't create drum parts, none of you.
I can't.
It's a drummer's thing to help a song build. It's like I couldn't write a guitar part. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to claim I could. So when I get drum parts in that sound, they're just wrong or just don't really work, or they're a bit disjointed, or it's like no drummer would play that. It makes the mix. I can never get happy with the mix because the foundation doesn't sit right for my drummer OCD. And then I feel like that's a reflection on my mixing, and it's not. It's a production thing, but as we know, the production and the arrangement are so inextricably linked.
100%.
One can't be good without the rest of them being good.
No. And as my old pal Dan used to say, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. And that's... I think that works. 100% works for this, because mixing stuff that is well recorded is really easy. Push up faders, you're halfway there. Mastering something that's well mixed is the same. It comes to you, it sounds awesome. You're just doing a tiny little thing at the end. It's like, and a really good mastering engineer will know when to leave it the hell alone. I used to work a lot of stuff I used to send to Tim Young back in the day, and 9 times out of 10 he would send stuff back, and I'd be A-Bing it going, you haven't really done anything. But that's great. If he's happy, I'm happy. So
totally.
That's a really good mentality. And I would say, we were talking before we started rolling about I have sent out mastering jobs to other mastering engineers out of curiosity to see what comes back. A lot of people are doing way too much. Way too much.
I've heard that.
Think things are so wide and so pushed at the top and the bottom, and it's like, Jesus, I don't know what you've done, but you've done too much. Too much analog a lot of the time. A lot of smearing, too much sort of valve, too much transistor. Just, I love a bit of that, but too much of it, too many bits of gear, and it's gone. So that was quite interesting.
And I do think that it's quite pushes us on to just a little bit, because we did have analog versus digital last week, which went down pretty well. But at the end of the day, I think me and Ed's conclusion was it's all about priority. And if there's certain things that you can't get anywhere else, and the sound, and when to use it, then it's like a lot of a tool's a tool at the end of the day, whether it's digital or analog. So in terms of your mastering, what are the pieces of gear that you've kept that you find, if I need a specific sound, I go to that, or I try this, or I try that?
There's a few analog bits which are not necessarily things I've had for years, but the Golly cross compressor EQ, that thing is never going anywhere. That's just one of the most amazing bits of analog gear I've ever bought, and gets used a lot just because it's so unique in what it can do. It can be incredibly subtle, and you can use it like a 2-band dynamic EQ, or you can get busy with the cross compression and really bring something back to life that has not got any life. That's a fantastic bit of kit. So that is definitely one of my favourites.
Is it digitally recallable?
No, it's not. But I don't.
I was almost interested.
I don't often do too much with it, so it's not hard to put it back. The SPL Iron obviously is a real mainstay. I haven't had it very long, but I've got the Gain Lab Dictator, which I've been using for a few years, and I really like that. But I just, I'd used an iron a few times. I'm like, there's something going on with it. It's so annoying for people that don't get to experience this stuff, because you feel like you're being lied to a lot by people like me, probably. Because when you A/B it with the plug-in, it's really close. But the difference is that thing which you can't describe. And it is like, I hate saying it, but it's got some depth. It's got something. that you can't quantify. It's really difficult. So that is a magic button. I put that in. I don't do very much. 1 dB of compression, and it's it works. There's some new stuff in the studio which I haven't really talked about at all yet. I've got the Golly compression matrix over there, which is I'm making a video for Golly about it at the moment, trying to explain what it does, because it's quite tricky to explain. But it's not really a mastering, it's more of a mixing tool. But basically you run stems through it, and the sidechain lets you take things out of the mix but leave them feeding the sidechain.
Ah, okay.
So you can print off stems. So you can print off your drum bus stem, but the compression, your mix compression, has, the drums going through it, the bass going through it and everything else, but the stem could only be drums, or could only be bass, or only guitars, or whatever. So...
Oh, that's quite big.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, which is why we're making a video, is to try and explain how the hell that works and what you would use it for. There's a lot of reasons to do that these days, especially, people want stems so much now. So the ability to be able to print stems with compression that isn't in the stem, triggered from other things.
Yeah, and presumably kick and bass sidechaining.
Yeah, you can do some really clever stuff. Because at the
moment,
moment,
wondered how people do that.
If you run all your, stems out through your master bus, as a lot of people do, and then put them all together, it's like, that sounds weird. It's like, well, yeah, they weren't all going through the master bus separately, were they? They were going through as a thing. So, it gets around that. So that's pretty cool. Mastering-wise, the other tricks, I guess, I like the 552s, the HRK analog tape emulator things. Yeah, so I've got a pair of those, which are running mid-side. They just add something. Transformer vibes. I like it. Software-wise, the Pulsar 8200, just because I was a proper GML EQ fan for years. Briefly had one about 20 years ago. Couldn't afford to keep it. That plugin sounds the same, but it does more. So I use that a lot. And TB Pro Audio D-Seek. That thing is my de-harsher.
Okay.
It's. I find that to be the quickest and most, gets in there, gets it done with no messing sort of plugin. That's kind of it. Everything else is sort of standard. I use the PSP Xenon limiter. My sort of go-to trick for almost everything is to do the tiniest amount of limiting with that and then push that into another limiter. Sometimes the L2, sometimes the True Peak thing from Brainworks. Use a bunch of different ones, depending on what it is, really. But 2 limiters always sounds better than 1 to me. Yeah,
because again, it's the limiter isn't having to do
not making
much.
Work.
And you hear it, don't you? Especially when you hear like a limiter doing like 5-6 dB. You're just like,
Sometimes that's awesome though. Like
you're right. That's a good point.
Some dance tracks, I want that old L1 sound.
The pump. You want it here.
Ridiculous. I'll dig that out.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. For a little bit more, $39.99 a month, you can have 2 artists on your roster, which includes everything just mentioned. Additionally, synced lyrics in Apple Music, further streaming analytics statistics. You can create a customizable record name. Mine, for example, is Ed Thorne Rhythm and Records. And you can customize release dates, pre-order dates, iTunes pricing, and again, much more. Now, if you're an artist manager or a record label, the Ultimate Bundle gives you up to 100 artists for just $89.99 a year. And you get 1 terabyte of instant file sharing, which is useful, but also contact information for thousands of playlist curators on Spotify. This is really useful so you can pitch your artist music to playlist curators around the world. Only available in the Ultimate Bundle from DistroKid.
So suppose the last thing, and I think this is like very important because this is something that I have wanted to rack your brain about, is what I find you do really well is especially Instagram, because I say it all the time, I'm like an old man when I don't understand Instagram.
You're about 30 years younger than me, dude.
I know, but you do this thing that's really, really good, right? Where it's almost like a check-in, and it's almost like where you're in the same position. It's just like, right, let's have a sit down, let's have a chat, and it's just like this. It's almost like people are getting to know you with every reel, and it's like, and I was sitting there going to my wife, "Fuck, I should be doing that." And my wife just went, "You don't give a shit, Paul. That's the thing." And I just don't give a shit. But I suppose it's like when you talk about the amount of work that you're getting from social media. Like, so for somebody like me, Sean, like, what advice do you have to utilize social media from a business perspective to make it work, to get more clients? Like, what should people like me and Ed be doing, in your opinion?
I think you two are slightly different from almost everybody else in that you're documenting your journey.
Yeah.
So there's an issue with that. I think it's amazing. And I think people enjoy it. I enjoy it. I like watching it. I know lots of other people too. I do shout at the screen quite a lot. Stop rabbit holing monitors and just get on with it. But I enjoy it. And I think a lot of people do too. But I think the downside is that people see when you're not quite so confident, and they see that you're still learning. And that's difficult to sell yourself when you're putting it out there that you're still not 100% confident and you're still learning. So that's tricky. But I would say there's that's just honesty. I think if more people were honest, they would say, do you know what, there's still things I'm learning. And that's good. You've just got to find the right people that are all right with that. But yeah, as far as using social media, I mean, that thing I do on Instagram, literally, it's always Friday after. I'm just about to leave the studio on a Friday, always just about to have a drink. I'm like, I've had a long week, and I'm like, I've got to do the thing. And I literally get my phone, I put it, there's a little holder that just sits on that bit of the desk, and I just press record, and I don't know what I'm going to say most of the time. So I need a minute of something. So I talk about what I've done that day or that week. Done. I whack it straight into Final Cut, boom, edit, upload, done. That's the last thing I do on a Friday generally. And it's like I discovered only after I did it for a bit and then stopped that it was worth doing. Because when I stopped, the interest and the messages and the work dropped off. And I'm like, all right, okay. Someone somewhere is getting something because of this. It's not hard. I'll just keep doing it.
And what, is it just one video on a Friday you're putting out? I thought you were putting out a few.
I did the odd one here and there, but generally it's just one a week, and it's generally on a Friday afternoon, and it's like, I always start with, thank God it's Friday. And I talk about what I've been doing that day or that week, and maybe what videos are coming out on the YouTube, because we generally put them out on a Friday and a Saturday. So, but that's it. It's whatever I can remember to say before I bolt out of here. That's kind of it.
Honest, relatable content.
And I have it set up in a, like all my editing for the YouTube videos I do here, and I have it all set up so I can do that quickly. That little thing is edited separately on my little laptop, because that's permanently set up just to edit those. So it's a preset to make it look like that, to put the stuff on it. It's like 5 minutes work to get it out there. So even if I'm desperate to go, I do it, because it's easy and it's important. And it's, for me now, it's I don't know, it's the same. I mean, it is advertising, right? It's the same thing. It's advertising. It's letting people you're still there, and that's kind of it.
I think it reminds me of a lot of what Nicholas De Lorenzo talks a lot about on the podcast and to us all the time, where he's like, you don't put yourselves out there in terms of, look what I'm doing right now. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm busy and I'm working, and this is why, you should be working with me. And it's not a thing where you need to be, you see a lot of people that is a little bit sales and kind of, not snake oilish, but it's very sales and very much, look what I can do. You want to need a mixing engineer? Add this magic, blah, blah, blah. But I think what you've probably hit the nail on the head with is just being able to add in that human touch, but you're just dropping in that, by the way, I'm still working, I'm still busy, and here's something that you can get into. And again, it's accessible. Anybody can get into it, whether it be an engineer, an artist, a singer, songwriter, anybody can get into it. And sometimes the good thing with Instagram is that it can be random in who it decides to just spot stuff to.
Yeah.
So I think, Ed, that's maybe something we need to take on board, is what can we do more? And I think, Ed, actually, tell a lie, it's me, because Ed, you have been doing a lot better.
Yeah, it's been busy. I've been watching all the stuff.
Yeah, I'll give you your due on that. Yeah, I've not said that to you. That it has been very good. Even today, when you were putting out stories about, I've got 3 drum sessions today. That's telling people, right, I am a working engineer and I've got 3 sessions on. Where every time I've had like a session in here, I had a female artist in last week, and they were doing the TikToks in the studio, and I was sitting there going, I should probably do something, and get my phone out and stuff. And I think they were looking at me going, yeah, you could do whatever you like. And a part of me was just like, no, I'm in it, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm an engineer. But I think what you've raised is a great point, that I think so many people are utilising social media. And, if you don't advertise yourself, then how do people know to come to you?
The YouTube has been amazing for that. That wasn't at all the plan. It was literally, I started it with Dan, and it was just it was the end of lockdown. We were kind of bored. What are we going to do? Should we do something interesting? Let's do a YouTube channel. Let's review plugins. And that was it. We didn't give it any more thought than that. And it was then later I started realising, oh, this is turning into something. I'm getting work through this. I'm starting to get clients through the channel. It morphed into something else. It's very strange. And now, really, I can't imagine how my business would work without Instagram and YouTube, which is strange because I had neither a few years ago.
Totally, yeah.
So it's weird. It is weird.
But I think what it shows you is that it's the possibilities there. It's just, how you take the bull by the horns and you make it work. So I think another thing I was wanting to ask you was, in terms of pricing, has it got a little bit more challenging pricing for your work now compared to, I suppose, where things kind of set, maybe like kind of 90s, noughties, where things kind of like, that's my price. That's what an average mastering engineer, mixing engineer prices for, and people kind of paid it, or is it, would you say it's harder now because, you've got people like, I've got it in Scotland where I've got Eat and Ed sent me an Instagram, I think it was yesterday, maybe the other day, and it was cheap
Yes.
Ed. How much was this person charging for a mix and master?
75 quid.
Mix and master.
I think, was it 125 quid mixing and mastering? I can't remember. No, it was something random like £59. I can't remember. It was something
cheap anyway.
Woefully bad. And this person, they was then saying they had lots of availability. And it was like, oh, you've done two things wrong there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marketing 101. Yeah. Yeah, the fee thing is weird because like years ago when I was working at studios, you got a wage, wasn't very good for the amount of hours you put in, it was pretty bad. Then you go freelance and there's a massive jump. It's a massive jump, which in my 20s was amazing. I was very happy with that. But in reality, not really that great. And obviously it's very different when you're an engineer. You're not on the back end, you're not getting any points. I'm still thinking that's not massively fair. I think mix engineers should be getting a cut.
Yeah, I agree.
They don't.
Oh, 100%,
yeah.
But, it's a very creative thing as far as I'm concerned. It's like half of production is mixing, I feel. You're on a daily rate generally. It changed when I stopped doing that and you get your own place and you start charging for the work you do rather than the time, So, it's difficult. I for years, have had two price structures, one for labels, one for unsigned people. That sort of doesn't work anymore because everybody's got their own label, they're releasing themselves. It's hard to define who's paying, what you should be charging them. Realistically, if a client who's on a fairly decent label wants a mix, I'm gonna start at 500 quid. I'm not gonna go less than that because I just feel it's, they can get someone else to do it for less than that. But that's what I feel I'm worth. If it's someone I don't know and they're doing it themselves and they're the point of contact, there's no A&R or anything like that, then it starts at around 3 and it will just depend how many, what's involved. Are they going to send me, 50 tracks of audio? Are they going to send me 20? It all depends on what it is really. Mastering's a bit different. Mastering has got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because competition, basically. There's people out there doing masters. When I came back into it, I did a look around the internet, and obviously, as you guys know, people are knocking them out for 50 quid. So it's like, I sort of can't go more.
Yeah, I agree. I know.
I'm happy to do it at that level as long as I get enough work. People can come and sit in here if they want. Very few people do. I don't really want them to. I do say generally you're going to get it quicker and you're going to get it better if you just leave me alone. But if you really want to come and watch, you can. But it's probably not worth it. But yeah, that's difficult. I hope it doesn't keep dropping down because it won't work. But
it won't work.
I understand it. The other end, I work in management too, so I have a lot of dealings at the other end of it. There's no money, very little money in recorded music. It's just not totally there. And you can't, squeeze something that's got nothing in it. That's the problem, and I work with a lot of labels who are very, very honest, and I see the budgets. I'm responsible for putting the budgets together quite often for doing albums, and it's like there's very little money for this bit. It's like I try and make sure there's enough, but it's hard. You're stealing it from somewhere else at all times.
That's a good point. I never even thought about it that way. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, it is the responsibility of every single one of us to not allow prices to go down any further.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
I've been saying this to live musicians for for years. There are venues in town paying the same as they did when I started 20 years ago, which is fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
But the reason that is happening is because every single fucking musician, including myself, has taken those gigs. A lot of people do it through fear of missing out or fear of not getting work. I do drum gigs now because I enjoy them. I don't do it for the money because the money is just shit. I do it for some beer money. I do it to go and hang out, and I do it to get out on my flat. But when I was doing it full time, everyone was contributing to the problem because there'd always be someone, some people more guilty than others, but there'd always be someone happy to do a pub gig for the same money as 20 years ago. And it's everyone's collective fault that's the thing. So in mixing, I feel strongly about this. We all need to make sure it doesn't get devolved any further and in fact starts going the other direction. And I know there's no money in the industry. I get that, but that's a collective problem where all levels of the industry, recording, producers, mixers, mastering, we all need to start pushing up. So the money's not going all to Spotify, all 90% to the labels. It's got to come down to the people who are making it and making it happen. And maybe it needs government intervention.
It does,
I don't
100%.
know.
Yeah, Spotify and the like. That needs fixing. That needs fixing. The amount of money that was coming into the industry through recorded music 30 years ago was staggering. The amount not coming into it now is staggering.
Yeah,
and
But the industry's bigger than ever. I mean, in the UK, admittedly, it used to be the 6th biggest industry. It's now like the 11th or something. But globally, I think there's more money than there's ever been. It's a $1 billion industry globally.
It's in bits that don't filter to us. I work in touring as well, and that side of it, loads of money. There's plenty of money in touring.
I've been told that.
But,
even now I'm hearing there's not, and it's all, labels getting in on it with 360 deals because they're not making the money on
that's bad management.
And
never do a 360 deal. Never let a record label anywhere near your live work or your merch or any of that stuff. I get it. People sign anything when they're on their way up, but keep it separate because live is it's still financially viable. I mean, it's struggling too, but it's still working. But yeah, this bit of it, you're right. We have a responsibility to keep it going. Or, we all have to find ways of monetizing what we do that isn't just the job. That's the way I look at it. It's like we have to divide our week up a little bit. Maybe we'll spend 3 days mixing, mastering, a couple of days doing other stuff related, but maybe that props up this.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. That's why I got into YouTube for passive income. I'll be honest about it. And I still do live sound because my day rate's higher than my mix rate. So
yeah, there you go. But
often the same amount of work.
That phrase is a bit annoying though, isn't it? Passive. It's not passive, is it? It's hard work. YouTube for me has never passed the threshold where I've felt, okay, this is now money for nothing. Yes, if I stop, the channel still makes money. Yeah. Some affiliate sales trickle in, but it diminishes quickly unless you're contributing to the platform you got to keep
regularly.
Going.
But I don't feel like the amount of hours in the last nearly 6 years that I've put into it, I don't feel like I've earned. I dread to think what my hourly rate is if I added it up.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
Fuck, that'd make a good video.
That would make a good video. Yeah. I don't think anyone wants to know the reality of that, but it's not going to be great.
I don't think anyone would care, but my prediction would be I'd be on £1 an hour.
Yeah.
And that includes sponsored. If I factor in all the gear I've got for free, maybe that would skew it because a couple of companies have been quite generous. But just in terms of paid videos, ad revenue, affiliate sales, I think over 6 years it'd work out close to £1 an hour, maximum £5. But then I've got some videos, I've made like $5,000 off.
Yeah.
And other videos I've made 50p off, and they've both taken the same amount of time.
I think I've made 50p off 400 videos.
We make 50p off this podcast.
I know. So I think that, the best question to probably end this episode on, Sean, would be, right, you're speaking to a 16-year-old Paul Third and Ed Thorne, right? Today.
Should have thought.
What would be the advice that you would give them to make this, again, we'll scrap the industry thing, right? Yeah. Just to make this work as a sustainable full-time career, what would be your advice? What would be the things that you would advise them to do to make this a sustainable career?
Wow, if they're starting from scratch, or you're starting from scratch, I would say find someone locally who's probably done this for 20 years or maybe more. see if you can shadow them, watch them, get some wisdom off them. And ultimately, I do think the college uni thing, if you can do it, if it's an option for you, I do think that's a good route these days. There are such a lot of options there if you're prepared to put in the work.
Correct.
A lot don't, but I think you can. I think it's one of the few ways you can get your hands on some proper pro gear, and that's the kind of stuff that makes you want to do it. Get excited about it.
Yep.
Sitting in front of a screen can be hard to motivate yourself.
Very hard. Yep.
So I think that would be a good idea. But ultimately, if you're going to survive in this, you have to be driven, and that means just get on with it. Just get on with it, and don't make excuses. And when your mates are going to the pub, stay in. Mix a track, get some mates together who want to make a track, maybe want to start a label, whatever, do something, create something, keep going, just keep going. And I've got a whole bunch of friends who have sort of started things at different times. Some started labels, some started bands, some did what I did. A lot of them are still going in various ways. And, but now what happens is 20 years later, your friends, some of them who had lowly positions at record labels, now run record labels.
Yeah.
Some of your friends that used to work in a PR department somewhere are now doing PR for some big artists. Some of your engineer friends are now working for, massive. So all of a sudden your connections, your network is way better just because you stuck around. So be driven, get on with it, work hard, keep a network, grow a network, That's it. That's it. Just knuckle down, get on with it. But, be honest, get feedback, make sure you're good at what you're doing. I think there's a lot of people that I want to be the next Spike Stent, or I want to be the next, Manny, I want to whatever. No, most people making a living in this, you don't hear of. They're pretty much unknown. They're just getting on with it every day. Be that guy. Just get on with it. And, you'll get a name if someone famous talks about you in an interview one day. But other than that, you probably won't. Just get on with it.
Such a reality check.
I like it. Isn't it?
And I think it's great advice, because I think, honestly, I say it all the time, is the one thing that I've learned, and again, in my time, and again, I'm still trying to make it. I'm at the point when I'm slowly starting to make this a sustainable gig. But, really when the tide started to turn was when I started to dedicate myself more to it, and I started to really learn the things that I need to learn and learn the boring stuff, and and actually physically going out and working. As you said, Sean, it's like, just go out and do it. That's why I've got 5 free honestly, I feel overwhelmed by it. I've got 5 free sessions with Scottish artists going on, and it's great because they're all telling everybody, and I've got them in, and we're working on the songs, we're producing them, we're songwriting them, and we're songwriting, and it's good, and it's good to be working. And by working, it's amazing. And again, Sean, I think you've had this as well, where everybody gets it, where you think you're at a certain level, and then it's only till you then you do a few jobs, then a difficult session comes in, and then you learn and go, oh, that stung, and you learn from that, and you learn from that, oh, that stung, and you learn from it and learn from it. And again, it's making all those mistakes, and just do it, just go out and do it. That would be my advice for everybody, and I think that's the same with you as well. If you're not mixing and you're complaining, my mixes sound shit, how much are you mixing? Are you mixing every day? Are you in your 20s and could genuinely be mixing every day? Mix every day. Like, if you want to be a songwriter, fucking write songs every day and
enjoy 19 kilohertz while it lasts.
Exactly. But yeah, hard work and dedication. I think obviously, going through this entire episode, Sean, that is something that, again, you've proved in abundance, is that the reason you are where you are today is because dedication, hard work. There's been times where things haven't went your way, but you've got up, dusted yourself off, and and you've made it work. Testament to you. You're in a position that me and Ed would love to be in, and hopefully, know what, Ed? We always say this. No, hopefully, we will be in that. Sure. We will be in that position because we're dedicated, we're driven, and just time.
Just keep going. Do what you're doing. You're doing it already. It's like more clients will come. They will tell other people who tell other people. It just builds, and just keep going. And at some point, it might be quite cool. I'm not suggesting you do this now. Disappear.
I've thought about that.
Turn the channel off. Come back in a couple of years with a couple of, hit records or whatever. That would be quite cool, wouldn't it? But,
yeah.
Not now.
We'll disappear when DistroKid stops sponsoring us. On that bombshell. It's been emotional. Sean, that was a fantastic chat. Thanks for coming on, sharing your pearls of wisdom. And again, just making it relatable and
totally.
human. You know, I think that's what most people get out of this podcast, and that's been really enjoyable to chat to you about all that.
Yep.
Lovely stuff. Enjoyed it.
Sean, thank you so much for your time. Paul Third, Ed Thorne, Sean Vincent. See you again next week.
Adios.